Today we'll talk about Talcott Parsons' theory of action, or more commonly known as general theory of action. And we have already discussed how Talcott Parsons contributed to a very important debate on sociological theory, and he was trying to engage with the questions of agency and structure, considered as one of the preeminent American sociologists for developing a concrete and abstract model of social theory to understand social life. Talcott Parsons came up with several texts in his life. For example, The Structure of Social Action in 1937, The Social System in 1951, Economy and Society with Niels Melzer in 1956, Towards a General Theory of Action in 1951, and so on. Talcott Parsons, considered as one of the founding scholar to come up with functionalist interpretations of individual action, personality, and cultural life. And Parsons' main concern was to develop a coherent scheme, a conceptual scheme to understand human behavior which could be applicable in all times and all places, and it would address all the aspects of human social organization, and it would refine the theorizations in academic disciplines of sociology and to relate theory to empirical knowledge. So Parsons remained constant throughout his career in developing extraordinary models, and he is considered as the grand theorist of action. There are many influences on his thought and ideas which we have discussed in the previous classes. I'll briefly talk about the issues and the influences that he had on his thought. So, in this particular discussion, we will talk about his action frame of reference, where Parsons talk about how actors act, the means available to them, the situation within which they act, and what is the relation between individual personality, their individual actions, the social system, social action, as well as the cultural life, which is about the symbols and the values and norms, and what binds together all these systems as part of one in any given society. So, theory of social action, which has come to be associated with Parsons, did not come from a theoretical vacuum, and Parsons had a detailed discussion on existing scholarship and provided a critique. He was developing on Emile Durkheim's concept of social structure. He was developing on Weber's theory of social action. He was engaging with economists, particularly in his time, the popularity of utilitarian schools and their analytical and systemic thought. Parsons found very appealing. And more importantly, he was looking for a theory of action and human behavior, and that's why he thought that maybe we can learn something from economics modeling of human action. So economics was defining the human action through the categories of rationality, of choice making, and actions in the market, and decision making, and so on. So he was trying to understand how far do these models, which are popular in terms of economic discipline, they address the issues of subjective processes, of orientation, of normative decision making, and so on. So, where does this purposive action come from? How does it work? How do we understand it? And what does economics tell us about it? So, Parsons thought that since economics deals with human qualities of action, about accessible, which are accessible to understanding and experience, there is a kind of question about how sociology can generate a general theory of action. But he also thought that there are certain limitations with the economic model, with their heavy emphasis on assumptions about economic motivation, about rationality, about knowledge and competition, what are the rules of the game, and how do economists hold their concept of the status as well as role and action. And his critique was that the way economists have defined social action per se, they neglect the significance of non economic, broadly sociological factors. And so, on the one hand, economics was able to bring a very close approximation of economic behavior by modifying and understanding the correlation between different range of variables and uh, the statistical approximity. But he found that there is this absence of normative and moral value based concerns. So human beings not necessarily always act in terms of logic and rationality. So how do we account this? And that's what led Parsons to move to different disciplines and different theoretical and traditions in philosophy and sociology. And that's what brings Parsons to positivism. And Parsons thought that since sociology is modeled following the legacies of Auguste Comte and Emile Durkheim, that sociology is a scientific study of social action, social life, and human behavior, maybe we'll come up with a concrete scientific laws about explainable human behaviors. And he wanted to develop a scientific theory of social action which can help uh, people understand their social system and structure across the societies, not just in American context. And he found that even in positivist school, there are uh, very few and scarce discussions on the meaningfulness of the action. How do we talk about mind? How do we talk about consciousness, values, ends, normative standards? So, how do how do people uh, engage with the notions such as freedom? So, he found that positivist school somehow is shifting towards a structural explanation and is not able to generate enough theoretical assumptions or theoretical hypothesis about human agency. So that's what he thought, that voluntarism is missing in positivism. And without this, he thinks that it is very difficult to understand why certain action becomes normative and causal, and how does it become questions, how does it relate to the questions of morality. And he also thought that in positivist analysis, groups are very quickly reduced. So there is a question of reductionism, that groups are very easily resolved into component individual personalities, and that has come up from physics to chemistry in all this disciplinary vantage points. Uh, Even though he argued that this radical positivism can reduce all forms of sociology and psychology to some form of literary exercises without any explanatory relevance, and that's why he thought of exploring some other theoretical lineages. he thought that maybe idealism has some answer to it, and that's what led to the third important theoretical tradition which shaped Talcott Parsons' thinking and ideas. And he was particularly engaging with German theories and thinkers on who contributed to idealism. For example, he was very passionately engaging with the writings of Kant, Hegel, and Dilthey, Sombart, and Tönnies, even Spengler. And the basic assumption which was common among all these thinkers which attracted Parsons was that human action could not be adequately explained by the interactions of causal laws and of the sort that assumably determined the flow of events in the world of natural order. So they all agreed upon something uniquely human quality of social action, and that this quality somehow revolved around the elements of values, norms, freedom, spirit, and morality, and so on. So they wanted to understand social structure not as a causal order but as a moral order. And that's what attracted Parsons, because he wanted to understand how is society possible? How does a social system hold together? What sticks the different system and different subsystems into one larger whole? And he was convinced up to some extent that any adequate general theory of social action would have to find some way of taking ideas, ideals, norms, values, ends into account, and not simply as given facts, but explicitly as ideal elements that are desired by the people, that are desired by individuals. And that's what convinced Parsons in the idealist theoretical legacy. And he also thought that there are certain difficulties in the way these discussions are put forward by the idealists, because he wanted to see that how this society emerges. So he wanted to understand the outcome of social life as an emergent property of the social system. And he thought that there is an excessive, too strong stress on the role of ideal elements, and there need to be some common category through which we can understand different societies. And that's what he thought that is missing in the idealist philosophical tradition, and there should be more emphasis on empirical and analytical theories, so that we can compare social systems across the society, different societies. So coming up to the basic idea of general theory of action and the action frame of reference, there are certain basic elements to the theory of Talcott Parsons. First is that his objective was to construct an adequate general theory. So if you read the first section of the text, you will find that he is making a call for developing an analytical general theory, and it meant that it should be systematic, it should be complete, and should include all the factors, and it should relate to a system of empirical society, empirical nature. And secondly, he says that an adequate general sociological theory must be an action theory. And for Parsons, this meant that central mechanism must always be to focus upon some actors orienting themselves to the action, to the situation, with reference to certain goals, certain values, certain normative standards, and they are behaving accordingly. Now, this you will find much more in detail in the text if you go through this. Third element is that any meaningful action theory must be based on voluntaristic assumption, that there has to be some choice among the alternative values and courses of action, and which should be available to individual, which should be free in that sense. And the fourth element is that in a voluntaristic theory of action, ideas, ideals, goals, normative standards must be treated as causally relevant variables. They might shape, not necessarily they do shape. So these ideal elements are regarded as mutually interdependent empirically with various non-ideal elements in the empirical world. Next point is sociological theory must take into account the principle of emergence, something that I mentioned earlier, because he was looking for emergent theory. It has a strong philosophical debate from Kant to Auguste Comte to Durkheim, and Parsons also engages with it. And this means that at different levels of organizational complexity, systems emerge which have properties which cannot be inferred from or explained in terms of their individual component parts. Right? Something very Durkheimian here. The system is not merely sum of individual parts, it is more over and above them. So there is an each emergent level reality that needs to be addressed. That's why he is talking about personality, culture, and society. So next point is that he says system and their emergent properties never become wholly detached from their own component parts, and there is a mutual interaction. There is a mutual interaction between different component parts. There is an interdependency, and so these are some of the basic orientations which Parsons carried in his perspective. So for Parsons, in his action frame of reference, he says that there are certain basic coordinates of the theory. Actor, means, ends or goals or situation. Now these are some of the basic elements of his theory, and he says that there are broad areas of human conduct which in fact properly qualify as action, and these kinds of behaviors constitute the legitimate concern of the sociologist. And that's why he says that there has to be some explicit reference to subjective process and orientation, and which are conceived as causally relevant intervening mechanisms, and they relate to some notions of situation, ends, and normative standards. So combining his influence of economics as well as psychology, particularly Gestalt psychology, he is trying to see that the actor is taken as an analytical point of reference, and it is the executive officer which perceives, evaluates, organizes, experience, and control our approach to the reality. Next is situation. So the situation in action theory is not simply the sum of sensory stimuli that is available in the environment, but rather it is consists in meaningful organization of actors' orientation, which means that there are certain important objects in the situation, whether physical objects or social objects, cultural objects, symbolic objects. They might be relevant to certain actors, they might not be relevant to certain actors. So it seems that the Parsonian situation cannot be defined independently of the actor's orientation towards the action or the situation. So it doesn't mean that Parsons is obsessed with the purely free floating fascinations and fads of the individual actor. So he is saying that the actor is always under some pressure to keep his orientations in some adjustment to the facts of the external reality. So he says that because of the subjective process of orientation, and they define the situation, the actor then constructs a cognitive map of the situation. He appraises, he evaluates, right? So cathexis, cognition, and evaluation comes here into the picture. And in this process, the situation is structured by the actor into some meaningful configuration, something which is to be desired, something which is to be avoided, something which has to be overcome, something which has to be accepted, to be utilized. So actor must predict how the situation may be expected to develop and consider whether in terms of his goals and means available, whether some action is necessary or feasible. So goals and ends in Parsons' structure mean simply that the actor's pictures of the future states of affair, regarded as desirable, worth striving toward, or in the negative sense, undesirable and worth not pursuing or worth guarding against. Right? So they may be immediate, they may be remote, they may be vague, general, subjective, even transcendental. Right? So objects, for example, ice cream or success, happiness, so they can be treated as goals, right? So an actor has a cathexis desire towards them, gratification of certain needs, right? And that's where we all figure out that Parsons take the individual actor very seriously in physical terms, in terms of the body, by defining certain actions in terms of need, dispositions, bodily dispositions, and also normative needs, which are defined in terms of socially required, socially accepted behavior. Now you can connect with this Bourdieu's concept of habitats. You can see at what levels do these intersect and how do they differ with each other. So Parsons then say that actor has many different goals, and in order to allocate time and resources among them, he will have to have certain standards to understand, to select, to evaluate, and that's what leads to the discussion on personality, culture, and social system. So, what is personality? The way one individual actor's subjective orientation is organized. What is a social system? The way different individuals occupy certain status in the society, and through the process of socialization, they internalize certain value systems and they contribute to the integration. Right? So, the role allocation and integration is the key element for maintenance of social system according to Parsons. Now, with integration comes the cultural system through which we all have our symbolic universe. We have certain symbols together, we have certain meanings, certain objects which are sacred, right, through which we affiliate, we associate with each other. So, that's the realm of culture. So, in this situation, how do we talk about the interrelationship between personality, culture, and social system? So he says that these social systems are embedded in wider social metrics, and small systems are usually components of larger ones. So the subsystem within the wider system is organized, and based on this correlation of these three systems, he develops his action and interaction frame of reference. So, according to Parsons' view, these concepts uh, refer to systems which are analytically separable but might be empirically interrelated to each other. And you can also conceive that Parsons is trying to handle the age old philosophical questions of body mind dualism, right? The body mind problem. And concrete human personalities always reside in concrete organisms. But Parsons says the personalities and personality organization cannot be reduced to physiological structure and process. And this is why he brings in culture and society to talk about the normative standards through which human personalities develop, evolve, and engage with the wider system. So that is how he conceptualizes organism as different from personality. So there is a section and discussion on that. Conceiving the interrelationship between personality, social system, and culture system, he thinks that each of these systems is separate order of reality, but they interrelate to each other, and we can focus on either of them in terms of analytical purposes, because he was also writing with psychologists and anthropologists. So he was trying to develop a general theory of action. So after this, then he goes to and he ends up with a discussion on the whole problem of order, integration, and equilibrium. And that has been a very key element in Parsons' thinking. And he postulated an equilibrium seeking tendency as part of social systems and as a generalization from experience. And so it might appear that Parsons is concerned with equilibrium, which means that automatically things are integrated and adjusted. But Parsons would say that it actually reflects the way society represents a set of conflicting forces pushing and howling in all the ways together at one time, and that any sort of equilibrium that is achieved at all in any given society is actually a remarkable thing for Parsons. So he wants to see it as a central problem to understand how society works. So there are different subsystems which are attached to each other, and they are attached in terms of interdependence and interpenetration, and and that's why I say that any concrete patterns of action has consequences for many different sorts of system reference, but no particular course of activity can serve with maximum effectiveness. So these are some of the broad aspects of Parsons' theory. and you can engage with the text and come up with the questions. We can respond to the questions. You can contemplate upon the way Parsons has provided a very unique theoretical model, an abstract theoretical model to integrate and engage with the questions of agency as well as structure, to talk about questions of integration, how personality is linked to the social system, how a society achieves and seeks equilibrium in its rules and balance of order in among different subsystems. So broadly, Parsons' approach has been to engage with this question. And in later writings, he also comes up with discussion on pattern variables and how do societies differ from each other, what relates society to one society to another, and whether his model has evolutionary perspective and foundation to it. We can all engage with it once this foundation is clear. So try to read this text and then we can come up with some more questions.